Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from SimpleProgrammer.com. So this is going to be a continuation of the story I've been telling about my career and what happened to me. It's going to be my life story, no, just my career story here. Uh, in my last video, which you can find here, I told you what happened after I got fired from my first programming job. So that is the second part of the series. And here is the first part of the series where I first started to tell my story. I think this one was my first programming job, and I talked a little bit about that and getting fired from that job, essentially. And then now I'm going to tell you what happened after that. So when we last left off, I had gotten a job at HP in a testing role. I was actually got this job as a contractor at HP, and I was in charge of, I was a test manager essentially. I was in charge of a testing area. I guess it wasn't a manager. It was more like a test lead for this group of tests for this particular printer. And it was kind of just this bull crap job. If I'll be totally honest with you, it was what ways could you test a printer? I mean, you make a spreadsheet and you're like, we'll test all these paper sizes and combinations, and that's it. Like, there's not much, and all the different features on it, there's not a whole lot of strategy there. So I hated that job, but it was a way in, right, to get in. In fact, it's funny. I guess I'm not gonna reveal any names here, but there was this other guy that was just so annoying at HP. There, he was. I won't give you his nickname, but there was a nickname for him. But he was an HP employee. I was a contractor. And he would just every day he would sexually harass this girl that was also a contractor that was sitting across from me, across the way. And she's good looking, but he would just be over there in the cube all the time, just sitting in her cube, and he was over her, he was her boss essentially, and he worked for HP and she worked for this contracting company, and he would just ask her out on dates, and he would just be always over there finding an excuse to just basically harass her the whole time. So anyway, I don't want to get too much into that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. So anyway, I'm sitting there, right, in my cubicle, just trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I got to get into software development. I can't just be here doing testing. Nothing wrong with it, but it was just it was a BS job. It wasn't real. And I had been hardcore programmer at this point. I had actually learned my lessons. I was doing really good. The last job that I was at, I had reverse engineered this binary language format and written this cool C++ app to do it. I was getting into .NET. I was still doing some coding there, but I was really hardcore C++, doing C++, the top coder competitions every week. So what ended up happening was there was this guy that sat next to me. I'll give his name. It's Brian Fegler. If you're out there, Brian, I don't think you're watching my videos, but if you are, shout out to you, buddy. I haven't heard from you in a while. But anyway, he sat next to me, and he was working on the tools team. There was basically a tools team at HP that was working on these internal tools for testing. And it was actually pretty cool. There was this tool called Anteater that they were developing over there, and it basically did automation on. That was actually my first experience, with automation, and it did automation on printers and simulators. It would basically you could write these scripts in this Anteater language, and it would let you do all kinds of cool stuff. Change settings and print pages and all kinds of pretty interesting stuff. So anyway, he was working on this, and he was not really. He didn't really know C++ at the time. He knew a little bit, right, but not much. He was not I was chomping at the bit because he's struggling with these really simple problems, and here I am one of the top coders in the world on top coder doing these complex C++ things, but I'm stuck in this test lead position, which I hate, right? He was a contractor as well. So what I would do is I would go over to his cube and I'd help him. And this is a good strategy. I was kind of partially strategic here, trying to figure out what to do, and partially I just wanted to help because I wanted to write code. If I could just be involved in writing some C++ code, I was happy with that. So he'd have a problem. I'd go over and I'd look at it and I'd help him figure out. I was solving like so many of his problems. I was just like helping him so much. And basically he started telling his boss that we need to get this John guy on our team, because I'm gonna stand up for a second here, because he's helping me so much and he knows this stuff. Like he can write this Windows apps in C++, and and so it ended up. I mean, it took a little bit of while and some horse trading. But eventually, they moved me. They took me out of this. Actually, so this test lead position was a higher level position, and they put me in this lower level dev position on the dev tools team. And that was a great job. That was fun. We had a lot of fun. We were goofy. Me and Brian. I remember he wrote. This is. I might have told this story once or twice, but he's a goofy guy, like you just have to know. But he had this one part of code where he was like naming his variables names of fruit instead of like sensible names. It was annoying, but that was just his personality. In fact, his boss one time, I was his boss and my boss, pulled me aside and he was like. And this is this older guy, right? And he's very serious, and we're goofy. I'm not as goofy as Brian was then, but he pulled me aside and he's like, "Is Brian on drugs?" And he really thought that he was. I was trying to convince him. I was like, "No, he's not on drugs. He's just making jokes, and you're just not understanding it." But he was totally convinced that he was on drugs. And when I told Brian, he was so insulted. It was hilarious. So anyway, long story short. I basically was on the tools team, and I was kicking butt on the tools team. I was having a lot of fun, developing the C++ app and coming up with all these ideas. Eventually, I did such a good job on the tools team that I got promoted to be the lead of the tools team. And so I ended up running the meetings and setting the course of direction for the tools team. I was very technologically prejudiced at that point, though. I remember beating up on Python developers, and because I was like, static languages are the way to go, C++ is it, and dynamic languages are crap. And so I would, there was this guy that was really good at Python. I regret it now. I feel sorry for how I treated him. It's not like I was like abusive, but I was just like so confrontational about how much better static languages and C++ were. It was, I was naive. I didn't realize that, not to be a technology bigot. So anyway, I basically ended up being the lead of that team, and then I got an offer from HP. Because they needed someone to not only lead that team, but to lead this new initiative that they had that was basically going to be this triage team, this kind of elite debugging team. And so I ended up getting an offer to get a blue badge, as they call it. I had an orange badge, and upgrading to the blue badge. There was this whole subculture there. Anyway, they gave me this really low offer because I didn't have a college degree at the time, and that sucked. So I was actually ended up making less than I was making, but I took the opportunity because I wanted to be an employee, and I thought it was a really good opportunity to be an employee of HP. It's a big company, right? So I took the job. I was one of the only developers there that had gotten a job without a degree, because you're supposed to have a degree, and they put me in a low pay grade. I ended up running this triage team. So me and this other guy, Jorge, he's still there at HP, I think, actually. If you're watching videos, hey, dude. So anyway, we ran this triage team, and we basically took some of the people from the tools team and some other developers, and we hired all these kind of just hot shot C++ developers to triage problems, defects with the printer. So we are this really advanced C++ team. That's where I started to learn .NET. I actually built an internal tool on that team to track defects and to track our progress. It was called Progress Tracker. How creative was that, right? And it integrated with defect management system, and it was pretty cool. And I also at that time I was doing some automation, working with some folks over there. Kevin Messiab, shout out to you, real genius dude. But he knew .NET really well, and he was developing a tool, and we built this whole automation, fully automated testing, we called it. at this time, and it basically allowed you to do essentially, it was pretty far ahead of its time. Like, it allowed you to have like this pool of tests, and you could run them on different printers overnight. So we were like hitting these printers with fully automated tests overnight, and it was a lot of fun. It was a pretty interesting time in my career. So let's see what happened next. So then HP decided that they were going to actually invest in .NET and maybe make a printer that had a lot of .NET innards in it, right? Instead of just a normal C++, Linux-based sort of real-time embedded OS, they were going to have a Windows CE board in there and have .NET in the printer. So I was super excited about this because at that point I was learning so much .NET. I actually got all my certifications, my MCDBA and my the MC80, the Microsoft Certified Application Developer. I took all my tests and did that. And then, I heard about this team. I got basically on the architecture committee for this, and I was kind of this low-level guy. But the thing is, they wouldn't let me get on the actual development team. I was helping them, like, no one knew .NET, right? I was teaching them and really helping out, but they wouldn't let me. They were like, no, you are in this role. They would not do any kind of horse trading. It's this whole, like, this is what happens in the corporate world, right? They have resources. No one wants to give up their resource because they don't want their empire to shrink. So my manager wouldn't trade me over to this other section manager, even though like I was obviously the .NET guy in that whole building. Out of everyone, I was the certified .NET guy, and they wouldn't. So I basically quit. Like I put in my notice. I tried as hard as I could, and then I was like, look, I'm just not going to stay here and not stay on the triage team. I didn't really want to go into management, and I was starting to go into management there. So I basically put in my notice, and I took another job, actually, a higher paying job, a much higher paying job, salary job. I think this was like, at the time HP was paying me like 60 something, and I took a job making like 80. And I signed the contract, and I was literally walking out the door on my last day, and the section manager called me over as my hand was on the door, and he said, "Hey John, can I talk to you for a second?" And he was basically like, we don't normally do this, but since you didn't come and try and like threaten that you're going to quit, you just basically quit and didn't try to negotiate with that. We're gonna give you an offer. And so he gave me an offer to come on to the .NET team as a technical lead and up my salary quite a bit to match that offer. In fact, I think it surpassed the offer that I had. And so I rescinded on the other contract and said, sorry, I'm still here at HP. They convinced me to stay. And so I stayed, and I was like, one of I was having a lot of fun, just from this whole ground up greenfield project. I was on the architecture committee, and I was doing, some really cool .NET stuff with printers, some really, really good opportunity. But again, I was such a hardhead. I thought I knew it all at that point in time. I got into these arguments with people that were trying to design, a framework, and I was trying to do it by the book, the .NET Microsoft way that it says, and I'd get into arguments in these meetings. I was very argumentative at this point in my career. I see it as an error now, not getting along with people. I had not read Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, at that point, and I was very argumentative and just, I wouldn't have hired me now, honestly, like, because of the disruption that I caused. I mean, I was smart, I knew what I was doing, but if someone was wrong technically, I didn't understand how to deal with that properly. Instead, I just told them they were wrong, and I couldn't, I didn't have the soft skills that were required in order to really be successful. So it held me back. It limited me. And I'll tell you, I'm going to wrap this up now because it's like we're in 14 minutes here. And in the next episode, let me know if you want the next episode, by the way. I'm going to tell you about how I quit HP and didn't get a severance and missed out on like a $20K. I quit like 2 weeks before they were going to offer employees like 20K, severance package in order to leave early when HP was having some hard times, and I quit with nothing, and I got my real estate license. I'll tell you about that in the next one and what happened from there. Let me know if you like this story, if you like this video series, and I'll keep it going. I've got a lot more going all the way up to today. If you'd like it, I'll tell you my whole story. So anyway. If you liked the video, subscribe to get the next update, and leave a comment below and say, hey, John, continue the story. All right. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.